Well, yeah, well, depending what you call it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. To me, next year has just begun.
That's true. I'm
This year 5,786. If you haven't noticed. Just a minute. Let me start. Let me start. Let me start. Video. Um, Miriam Hanetta. Are you only seeing one person? Oh, and the thing isn't on. Yeah, I give up. The one didn't go on, so we're not going to be able to. This owl. Is there anyone here? Oh, here it is. It's managed. That should be yoga every day. Yeah, no, but I found this one. Absolutely. Good morning, Arlene. Good morning. Is your mic?
Okay, sounds good.
Very good.
Right. Sounds good.
Don't put it in front of Frank. Because your Frank gets up.
You ready to start? I'm not ready.
Yeah.
Shall we say that you're a psychotherapist rather than a psychologist? Consider myself. Psychotherapist. Just go.
What again if you?
Okay. All right. I'm not gonna get it.
Now you're gonna go with it.
Yes.
This is an exciting post Rosh Hashanah pre-Yom Kippur Sunday. Yesterday we celebrated Shabbat Shuvah, Shabbat Shuvah is the Shabbat between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which means that we're at the peak and the height of our journey towards whatever it is that we're journeying towards. And approaching the holiest day of the year for the Jewish people, which is exciting to many in various degrees. And in order to prepare ourselves to this opportunity for renewal, for attunement, whatever it is that we're preparing for, we have launched a mini series within the whole of the bagel about sin and forgiveness. As you know, the bagel goes round and round, and it's ever moving, ever rotating, ever changing. And this mini series consists of 4 different people of faith who either spoke or will speak about sin and forgiveness from their tradition. Originally, I had hoped to get all the people of faith first and then get you afterwards. It's like, now that we had all the religion, let's talk about, but it didn't work out in the dates. So we had a Jewish rabbi, that was myself, spoke about various options to understand sin and forgiveness, and which we actually call teshuvah, the process of teshuvah, returning in Judaism. We only realized that we have enough for a few lectures for a few years because the Jews could never agree on how to do it. So, but we started talking about it. We've been discussing the Jewish approaches, throughout the high holidays and the services as well. Then we had our Christian friend, Reverend Kathy Teal from First Asbury Church, speak of her very own interpretation. She spoke about fear and other things, and she said it's not what the Methodists say, but it's what I say, and we believe her, but nonetheless, she was authentic enough for us. And then last week, we had a friend who's a Muslim and who teaches Islam at the University of Rochester, who, by the way, will also be teaching here 3 sessions on the Rosh Stairs, Path Through Spirituality in the spring. And that was a fascinating approach to understand our other sister religion, Islam. And then next week, God willing, the Church of Latter-day Saints, which has been invented not far away from here, so we're keeping it for last. We'll even just get a glimpse of how they approach the issue. And in the midst of all those clergy, we have Gail Ferraioli, who will give us a different approach. And I will let you introduce yourself, okay? Since you asked to be introduced yourself. But we know Gail to be a longtime congregant, a person who helps a lot of people in their processes, and has led us with some process of listening in this congregation, and you'll tell more about yourself and your approach. And I wish all of us a wonderful time with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, okay, great. I have to put my glasses on, but I will hopefully still see you.
Yeah, put the mic really close to your mouth.
Yeah. There we are. It is really great to be here. There are more people here than I expected to see in this time of such busyness. It's lovely to be here. And most of all, I'm humbled to be here and have been asked by you, Rabbi, to speak, especially at this sacred time of year. I come as a congregant, a mediator, a counselor, a restorative justice practitioner, and as a facilitator of healing. I have been asked to come and speak from a psychological perspective on sin and forgiveness. And perhaps the most important credential I bring today is as a human being who has sinned, who has been forgiven, and has forgiven others. What I do not come, however, is as a psychologist, despite the honorary promotion in the adult ed brochure. Just wanted to get that sin of commission out of the way.
Mark forgiven.
Thank you, thank you. I have nonetheless worked with couples and families, individuals, congregations, courts, and organizations in conflict, and understand how subjective sin can seem to be, and how it often emanates from the discrepancies between how we intend to do things and what the impact of our behavior and our actions really are. Religion, philosophy, spirituality, and psychology all explore these aspects of existence as well as others. This morning, I will try to braid them together into our topic for about 45 minutes, including 1 or 2 experiments, and then reserve time for questions after my closing. So here we are in this room together in this moment and online. But what are we seeking today? What are we seeking here? I'm wondering if maybe it's to have a chance to speak, to be in community, to understand. Maybe in 3 words or less, someone would like to share what you are seeking today. Shoshana?
Forming connections.
Forming connections.
Repeat it, please.
Forming connections.
You guys want to use the mic?
Oh, another connection.
Another connection. 1 more?
I'd like to know what is sin.
Okay. All right, so a lot on connection and what is sin, and I actually will speak to that. Okay, wonderful, thank you. So before we do delve into that question, I'm wondering if we could move into a little bit deeper space by closing our eyes for a few moments, sitting quietly. I invite you to imagine that proverbial string at the top of your head, gently lifting you straight, stretching your vertebrae, and then relaxing into alignment with the rest of your body. Noticing your feet touching the floor, under which lies the earth. Lifted and grounded, you are a conduit of energy from the heavens to the earth and back again. And now turning your awareness to your breath, breathing in deeply, exhaling slowly, welcoming the air, feeling it expanding your chest and perhaps your heart within it. Breathing in this quiet moment, a chance to relax your body and mind, opening yourself to new possibilities. Breathing in and letting go. Taking in another breath from that same air which sustains beings around the planet. With each in-breath, we're connected to all of humanity. And with the carbon dioxide-rich out-breath, we feed the flora of our world, which gives us oxygen and depends upon our exhalations. Through the miraculous act of breathing alone, we are contributing to the world just by being. The in and out of our breathing, an active symbol of our interdependence. With each breath in and each breath out, noticing the expansion and contraction, the rise and fall, the receiving and giving back, the ebb and flow. Now notice the space between your in-breath and out-breath. This potent pause this space of freedom and mystery. Enter it, even as you continue to breathe naturally. What is it you are really seeking? Here, today, or in this season, what is your soul asking of you? This question may take a long time to ponder. Feel free to take it home with you. For now, I thank you for co-creating this space in which we might hear each of us our own still voice. For now, I invite you to open your eyes again, rejoining our community. So one of the first images that came to me as I began to flesh out this presentation this summer was a picture of Jacob wrestling with God. So maybe we can imagine ourselves in that picture in place of Jacob. How we paint this in our mind's eye may reflect our concept of God, which in turn is influenced by our developmental stages, cognitive, emotional, and spiritual. Once that picture is somewhat developed in our minds, we can liken them, we can liken that relationship between we wrestlers and God to that of the ego and the sovereign self. To the ego and the divine consciousness, to the God of our supplications and the infinite oneness of and beyond our souls, and to the spark of light which we carry within, and the infinite light that shines eternally. What we are called to wrestle with today and during these days of awe is sin forgiveness. Sin got top billing. So what really is sin? We have been asked. I am not sure. I can honestly say many of our speakers have tried to define it these past few weeks and through the ages. So adding to these is just my thought that sin is the insistence of our smaller self with a lowercase s on itself. It's what stems from our ignoring or indifference to or lack of awareness of the connectedness of that small self to all else, especially to other people and other manifestations of consciousness, such as God, nature, animals, even wonder. It is the forgetting that our doings impact others, and it is this forgetting that separates us from our best selves and from our loving kindness, responsibilities, and accountabilities to others and the world. It is seen and it is felt when we lose the sense of the sacred between us, that sacred captured so beautifully in Martin Buber's descriptions of the I-thou relationship. And when we fall instead into transactional relationships that objectify our speech, our actions, and even our desires. This connection with relatedness, with wonder, openness, honesty, integrity, and even curiosity suppresses our spiritually aspirational selves in favor of expediency and our own comforts. When we disconnect in these ways, our immediate reactions dominate our capacity for patient reflection of our deeper, intimate, and complex feelings. Conflict will arise then with this betrayal of self. Maybe we can think of a time when we might have blamed someone for getting in the way of what we wanted to do or how we wanted to be seen. What erupted for you then? Anger, frustration, blame, sarcasm, defeatism. These and other reactions emerge from the limbic system of our brain, which, like the ego, is concerned with our survival. They arise quickly, which is why they're often called triggered reactions. And they're reinforced by beliefs, thoughts, and associations within the body. When we are in conflict, too often these immediate reactions surface before full awareness seeps into our vision and our prefrontal cortex of our brain, where our executive functions lie. What results is a rupture in our relationships. We can override that reactivity by acknowledging our feelings over our mistaken thoughts or misguided actions, with compassion for the struggles we are having with others, as well as those within us. When we name these feelings, we tame them, as psychiatrist Daniel Siegel famously said. This affective labeling helps us to more calmly turn to what is underneath them and to explore why we reacted as we did and how to call up our higher self, the one with a capital S. That pull to integrity, to the higher road, is held in our conscience, which is itself dependent upon consciousness. When we deliberately slow down, allow ourselves to feel what we're experiencing, name our feelings, and explore beneath the surface, we can rise above our distressed ego self. In these times of conflict, it takes the mindful pause of awareness to see the gaps between our intentions and the impacts of our actions. Can you help me complete the phrase? The road to hell is paved.
With good intentions.
Yeah, got it. I was raised on that one. We need awareness to ascertain what happens between here and hell. By hell, I mean, of course, whatever and wherever we have lost connection with honesty, trust, and reverence. To stimulate that awareness, it often helps to reflect upon the three main questions asked in restorative justice processes. What happened? How were you affected? And how can the harm be repaired? I will later refer to these and other aspects of restorative justice as well as relationship therapy, as I have through both facilitated healing conversations pertaining to sin and forgiveness. The conversations in particular that come to mind are those that related to physical assault, arson, extramarital affairs, and murder, among other violations of relationships. The resolution of these incidents that I just named required integrity from those involved. When we open to integrity, we open to the possibility that, as Rabbi Brad Hirschfield titled in his book, "You don't have to be wrong for me to be right." As we nurture this truth, we begin to take into account the experience of the other, whether perceived as victim or offender. In conflict, rather than surrendering our integrity, we might reach for it or pay attention when our heart and gut, our intuition, signals the need. How many of you, like me, have ever sent an email only to immediately regret the word after pressing send? Few nods of acknowledgement. For me, this has been accompanied or even preceded by a queasy feeling in my stomach or a tightness in my heart. That is our intuition signaling our higher self to pause and reconsider what might otherwise have been done in haste and result in harm or hurt. When we're unable to connect with that more expansive awareness, we might wonder, what is blocking that perspective? Is it our ego-driven identity? Are we unwilling to relinquish a stand or a story we've rehearsed over and again? What am I grieving? What role does embarrassment play? Anger, fear, hatred. In these situations, it's helpful to give our feelings some focused attention, not elevating them self-righteously or wearing them like a badge of honor. These things would intensify them and lead to further suffering. Neuroanatomist Jill Bolte-Taylor wrote that it takes 90 seconds for the chemicals related to our emotions to leave the body. After that time, staying with them is a choice. Buddhist psychology would call that grasping onto our thoughts, our judgments, stories, which only intensifies our suffering. Instead, we can attend and listen to our feelings so that we might more clearly see the torturous turns between here and hell. By sitting with them, we can learn from them. Our feelings, triggered or not, are a bridge to deeper awareness when we turn to what they are asking of us. For example, if it is anger that we're feeling within a conflict, the questions that author Carla McLaren would urge us to ponder include, what do I value? What must be protected? What must be restored? If it is hatred, we might ask, what has fallen into my shadow? What must be reintegrated? And with embarrassment or shame, we might ask, who has been hurt? What must be made right? Each feeling invites us to explore and understand what is beneath our reactions and leads us to our own accountability for our part in the conflict. The answers to these questions offer a path to healing through honesty, vulnerability, and an understanding of what we need to heal. So this leads us to ask, does healing require forgiveness? Does forgiveness require forgetting? Does it require remorse? Let's first consider the latter. Remorse is helpful in positively influencing healing, depending on the kind of harm that occurred and the relationship between those involved. Remorse is the side of shame that motivates the seeking of repair. Repair might include forgiveness, but that is not necessarily an outcome or a precursor to reconciliation. Getting too attached to forgiveness is another form of grasping and disturbs equanimity and the work of repair and healing. In restorative justice processes and the dialogical work of relationship therapy, conversations revolve at a bare minimum around those three questions. What happened? How were you affected? And how can the harm be repaired? Other words that invite conscious, connecting conversations include, what I hear you saying is, did I get you? Learning that it makes sense to me that you needed or wanted. I imagine that you also felt. Is that accurate? What arose for me as I listened to you is, what would respect look like to you? What else would you need to feel safe? One thing I'm willing to do to promote that is, one thing that touched me is hearing you say. Such words spoken gently help to create safety. In safe, structured space valued in therapy and restorative justice, each person has a chance to tell their story before the next person speaks from their perspective. Listening in community is critical in these settings. Yet studies show that memory is not a very firm gauge of fact. It's fluid. And because we tend to judge ourselves by our intentions and others from their impact upon us, we unconsciously skew our stories and we distort them and those of others. Our memory is happy to play along. But the chance to tell one story to the holder of a different one does open the door to agreeing upon basic information. He robbed me. She had an affair. I set that fire. In turn, sharing how one is affected is a very powerful gateway for empathy and remorse. Telling one story and listening to another's further opens the door to connection and a desire to heal the hurts and harms. That said, there are times when people, especially those who are especially close, siblings, couples, parents, and children refuse to engage in a two-way conversation or otherwise avoid contact completely. They may be deeply enmeshed in their own distress and blame of each other. They may feel shamed by others or ashamed of their own behaviors. Sometimes they're ignorant of what caused the fractures. At these times, each may become transformed when they imagine how they personally contributed to the rupture of the relationship, to dive into that sea of curiosity about what the other has experienced and what they themselves have denied or disowned that may have contributed to the pains and harms now anchored in the body and the spirit. This becomes a reach for our highest self and spiritual values. It requires us to search deeply within through our muddied, shadowed, and clouded selves. Worth the work, these imaginations stimulate empathy and lead to a deeper sense of remorse, accountability, and responsibility. We then can more compassionately approach the person with whom we're clashing, rather than to continue to avoid them or accuse them. This promotes positive connection and calm, creative, courageous overtures for healing. It's underscored by remembering that love is a verb. It also helps to remember, is it more important to be loving or to be right? Is it more important to be loving or to be right? So are you willing to take a few moments to experience these kinds of imaginations? Any hands of willingness? Okay, wonderful. So if so, without moving your chairs too much, if you could simply turn to the person next to you. This should be done in pairs, so two people looking at each other. And for those online, I encourage you to ask somebody nearby, perhaps to just join you. And if there's no one nearby, to perhaps to make yourself visible online and lock eyes with another person online as well. So does anybody need help finding a partner right here? We need two and two, so if there's anybody need another person to sit with. Yeah, another person, we have another person.
Is anybody missing a partner?
Does everybody have a partner to look at? If anyone does not, you kindly raise your hand. Okay, wonderful, thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you. Okay, as for settling, let me just share with you that this is an experiment I was privileged to partake in 7 years ago. Revered clinical psychologist and Buddhist monk Jack Kornfield graced about 2,000 of us with his gifts by leading us in it. Can you imagine an audience of that size and being able to hear a pin drop? Perhaps we can try with this smaller group too. So sitting with your partner, staying silent, just take in a deep breath and exhale any tension. Silently looking into the eyes of the person opposite you. Whatever arises, embarrassment, discomfort, wanting to look away. Just be aware and patient with yourself and return quietly to your partner's eyes. You may not be able to see this unique human being this way ever again. As you look into their eyes, look for the beautiful spirit behind them. Behind these eyes are gifts. Open your awareness to see your partner's potential, unmeasured reserves of patience, intelligence, courage, strength, endurance, wit, wisdom. Gifts born in each one of us that can change the world. Behind these eyes is a human being with great capacity to love, that innate gift from birth. As you look behind their eyes, become aware of your own good wishes, arising for their safety, wellness, happiness, peace. Know that this is the experience of loving kindness. Trust in this. Rest in this. Take it in, even as you give it to your partner. Now continuing to gaze, let go of loving kindness and looking deeply, become aware of the measure of sorrows behind these eyes. The pains, disappointments, failures, losses, insecurities, loneliness, the hurts that are behind these eyes. Let yourself open to that sorrow that this person sitting with you may not have ever told another. You cannot fix their pain, but you can be present to their struggle with a measure of courage. Imagine this human being as a frightened child, as someone who is hurting. And while you wish to fix their pain and may not be able to do so, observe how naturally you want to reach out and comfort and hold them. Know that with your deep attention, you're experiencing the great heart of compassion, essential for the healing of the world. Rest in it. Trust in it. It is who you really are. Taking in some deep breaths, letting go of compassion and the vision of pain. Look deeper into this being's eyes and see the joyful spirit born into this person. Picture their happiest self as a child. Imagining they're dancing, singing, they're laughing. No, this joyful spirit was born into this child anew. This spirit of wonder is in you too. Experience the shared joy within you, filling your heart, body, mind, and spirit. Awake and joyful, you can live with this. Take a deep breath, releasing, and continuing to gaze into your partners and letting go of joy, letting your awareness drop deeply like a deep stone, heavy stone into the mystery of consciousness. Sense who is born into that body across from you. See that being as one who in another time and place was old, was young, was your student, your teacher, your mother, father, your child, your friend, your enemy. You have known this being so many times. Let yourself look deeply behind these eyes. Who are you really? Not the body, the thoughts, the conditions, but pure consciousness. Ask yourself, who am I that is seeing? Trust in and rest in this awareness. It is timeless. You are witness to eternity. Welcome this homecoming to see the secret beauty behind these eyes and to be seen in the same way. Let your eyes close gently. When you are ready, open and say whatever you wish to this person. I wonder if anyone might like to share how this felt for you.
Never looked at anybody that long. Yeah.
So it was strange. I never had looked at anybody that long before. That intensely. Anyone else care to share? You felt sadness. Sometimes we don't know why. Sometimes it's grief for not allowing us ourselves to be seen. At other times, sometimes it just descends. Joyce,
Grateful.
grateful.
Just a word.
And Bill,
I know, yes, my husband is a joyful child.
so first I heard up front was loss, and then I heard being able to see your husband as a joyful child. How often we look up at each other, remembering that that child is still there with us, when we allow it to come to the fore. Yeah, that's good. So in vulnerable interactions and conversations between two people who create a container of trust, as you just did, how we observe changes what we see, feel, and think. How we observe can be swayed by our expectations, our mindful intention, and the quality of our shared space. How open we are to the experience of another. In conflict, when we reform our perspective through honest conversations within ourselves, we can transform our perceptions, moving beyond an intransigent self-image as either a victim or an offender. Are we David or Goliath? Goliath, Rabbi Zohar asked us in a sermon this August. Sometimes we are both at once. As we own our part in sin and ensuing harm, we begin to reintegrate other parts of ourselves, both the shadows and the light, into the wholeness of our being. As we make amends for our offenses, we restore connection within into the present. We acknowledge the past, which cannot be changed, and atone in each moment by responsively attending to our words, actions, reactions, and responses, both now and in the future. This is repentance. Asking for and granting forgiveness is thus a dialogue between the smaller self, analogous to the ego, and the authentic larger self, which Dick Schwartz, in his internal family systems approach to therapy, calls the deep ground of our being. Rabbi Alan Liu asserts that this atonement could not in ancient times and still come without verbal confession. He equates this recitation of the Vidui with awareness, which he said activated the power of 3 sacred ritualistic moments, one of which was the propitiatory sacrifices made at the Great Temple. Although we no longer offer animal sacrifices, when we make sincere confessions to ourselves and others, I believe, in a sense, we willingly sacrifice our egos to move into deeper awareness of our spiritual values and toward divine oneness. As we humbly listen to the people with whom we're in conflict, we begin to reintegrate what we learned from them with empathy and accountability, and honor their experiences along with our own. I and thou. Such inner and external dialogues also pay homage to the inner child, whose wounds remain unhealed within us from years ago. This happens when we pause, hold space to acknowledge those old, elated, and complex feelings, and explore their origins and how they manifest in the present day. Then we can practice radical acceptance by compassionately embracing these feelings, reassuring them, growing from them, and transcending them. This is a process of rising with grace, of becoming whole through self-acceptance and accountability. It's teshuvah, a return to the truth of the divine within, of wrapping our arms around our own wholeness and of that of the community. Poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote, "No matter how deeply I go into myself, my God is dark and like a webbing made of 100 roots that drink in silence." The quiet space that makes room to hear the still small voice within, to me, is a gift of silence. We may posit that there is a grace to silence and a sin in silence. In Smiling at Anger, the poem of Thich Nhat Hanh, we learn a way to stay within silence, self-compassionately, even through intense emotion. He wrote, "Breathing in, I feel my anger. Breathing out, I smile. I stay with my breathing so I won't lose myself." This reminds us that we can return our attention to the body, the breath, and the quiet space is a way to return to our higher selves to prepare for real forgiveness. The sin of silence is found in the loud stillness, the resounding, unvoiced challenge to depression, to oppression, to degradation, to othering, to inequities and violence. Such avoidance at the micro and macro levels is felt in our bones is so not right that our spirits fracture as we squelch our voices and watch the suffering of other sentient beings, rather than direct our agency, our energy to our agency and heed the shofar of conscience. Suppressing our obligations as a part of our interconnected world, just like suppressing our emotions, can lead to inertia, depression, chronic pain, despair, and self-absorption. In those times, we may be a part of the world, but have lost our sense of partnership with it. Our bones rattle and creak with the need to return to the truth that we are interbeings, the need for teshuvah. The grace of silence is the offering of space in which to make a new choice, to absorb what has happened between us and others, and to others, to be responsive to the needs at hand and permit our conscience to rise higher than our fears and self-identity. I can think, hey, I'm the victim here, or you might fear reprisal. I can't admit that, they'll use it against me. Or we can both be patient and listen. He has suffered too. She is fearful as well. As we touched upon in our experiment, love can enter this equation that connects us all. Forgiveness as a path to healing affects the quality of that space between us. Our words and actions can make it and keep it sacred or sacrificial. The grace of shared quiet space makes room to relax into our vulnerability, which is the fastest and most meaningful path to connection. If I show you mine, my fears, my hopes, my frailties, it becomes safer for you to share yours. Vulnerability invites empathy and curiosity and offers a way to move away from our reactive limbic system into our prefrontal cortex. Along the way, with the help of neurotransmitters, our viscera adds heart. When we pause and connect with the executive functions of our brain, the parts that are self-aware, we can express thoughts and emotions in non-inflammatory ways. Our words can then land softly, invoke curiosity and connection, as opposed to defensiveness or offensiveness. We thus align with our conscience. This alignment instills peace within us so that we can heal that which disrupts harmony, that which, as Martin Luther King Jr. said, revolts against love. Earlier, I said that the purpose of our ego is survival. Our likelihood of surviving, however, is higher when we work in concert with others to achieve personal and communal harmony. When discord arises, Judaism has a prescription for forgiveness that we're called upon to follow individually and communally, especially during these days of awe. However, not all medicine works the same for all people. My mother of blessed memory used to say, "Don't let someone live in your head and not pay rent." Others have said, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot stone with the intent of throwing it at someone else, yet you are the one who gets burned. Sometimes people think both things at once and forgive prematurely because they can't take the pain of holding the harm. For reasons I'll soon share, it bears examining the motives we have when offering forgiveness, especially before real dialogue occurs. Is it out of sincere empathy for the other? Or to appear magnanimous? Is it to appease others by giving into their pressure? Is it just to be done with it all? Likewise, we can ponder what keeps us from forgiving. Is this a way to stay connected to the person, a form of negative, intense attachment? Will my continued suffering keep them suffering too? A little bit of revenge. Am I hoping that justice will prevail and that they'll finally get it and feel ashamed and become repentant? Do I feel safer holding on to this suffering? It's so familiar. What am I afraid of that might be required of me to let go? Forgiving quickly has its risks. One is denying the person who caused harm the chance to show remorse and be accountable themselves for their part in healing the harm, making amends. This denies them a chance to be identified with something positive, something other than the harm they caused. Peacemaker John Paul Lederach asserts that the goal of resolving conflict is peace, not pacification. Forgiving without mindful dialogue may preclude all people involved the chance to witness each other as human beings capable of facing the harm together and growing into wholeness and resilience and trust. When we openly and honestly connect, we slow down the pulse of hurt, trauma, and judgments and move out of shame and into courage. Meanwhile, our nervous systems then begin to co-regulate. This coupling of open-heartedness with self-awareness is fostered by the mid-prefrontal cortex. This is the part of our brain that allows us to pause and mediate peace. What we face, we can feel, and what we feel, we can heal. So imagine when you have hurt someone else and ask forgiveness. The wise person asks, that's Passover. The penitent one says, will you forgive me? But we might do well to consider, is our ask a plea to or an expectation of the other person whom we have harmed? What is the basis of our question? Have we done the work? Do we feel deserving? Do we hope to move on? Is it a statement or an implied commitment? Have we proceeded asking for forgiveness by validating the harm we've caused or contributed to? Have we hurt for their hurt? Have we communicated this directly without giving excuses or reasons for our behavior? When we ask, can we say, can you forgive me? And make a commitment to ourselves, not to repeat what has ruptured our relationship. Can we commit to listen to what else they need to heal? And critically, can we ask for forgiveness with a non-judging heart that can accept not receiving forgiveness at this time? Can we remain aware that time is needed to heal broken spirits, hearts, and bodies? Dr. Harriet Lerner asserts that a true apology does not ask the other person to do anything, not even to forgive. I would add that humbly and sincerely removing expectation and pressure to forgive affirms that we're differentiated beings with our own paths and timetables. This validates that the other person is not an extension of our own needs. It shows our commitment to atonement is not dependent upon an ultimate outcome of forgiveness, nor is it in the hopes of the often idealized outcome, forgive and forget, which serves neither person well. We can let go of anger, animosity, and anxiety without letting go of memory. Being merciful, repentant, and remembering informs the harmed person how to minimize future harm to themselves and guides the one who caused harm how to refrain from harmful action in the future. As we all stay aware, we expand possibilities for future peace and wellness. So before turning further to those who've harmed us, let's just touch for a moment on self-forgiveness. Our accounting of the soul can be a process of harsh self-judgment or compassionate self-honesty, a rejection of or acceptance of our humanity and all that that entails, our frailties, distractibility, ignorance, unconsciousness. Self-forgiveness allows us to embrace our shadowy parts in service of self-knowledge, strength, and integrity, and to do so tenderly. Rabbi Zohar had taught us how to use a different motion during the vidui as opposed to beating our hearts. Can we soothe ourselves with mercy so that we might connect and heal rather than self-flagellate in a way that hardens our hearts towards ourselves and others? When we can be merciful and compassionate with ourselves, we much more easily can be that way with others and be able then to forgive, connecting in our humanity, knowing we are one, that our redemption is tied to one another's. Yet there is still another way of looking at how to act when we are asked to be forgiving by the people who hurt us. The Babylonian Talmud conveys God's prayer saying, "May it be my will that my mercy will overcome my anger and my mercy prevail over my other attributes." Sometimes, however, the harm that occurred is so traumatic that pressure to forgive in any form or forum, therapy, religious counsel, from friends or family, or internalized, can set back healing. In fact, the pressure can be weaponized, as therapist Amanda Ann Gregory says, to silence, harm, or police a person to the detriment of their own healing. She writes that forgiveness should never be forced, pressured, or encouraged, or recommended for trauma survivors in recovering. She asserts that moral virtue should never take precedence over what is required for healing. Nonetheless, she keeps the doors open, we might say the gates open, that forgiveness should never be discouraged, shunned, or sabotaged when it does not negatively impact your safety. The traumatized person needs support to regain strength before the workout required to include the other in their consciousness. Rest may be the most needed prescription until one can rise to meet the challenge of returning deeply to self and wholeness. In other words, when the time is right for them. From the perspective of psychological health, only if and when that time is right do I believe that the quest in the Zohar may be considered. It says, "You beings on earth who are in deep slumber, awaken. Who among you has labored to turn darkness into light and bitterness into sweetness? Stop sleeping. Wake up. What are you waiting for?" Rabbi David Cooper expounds upon this in a moving story about Teshuvah and returning to the divine within us. If time permits, after questions, I would love us to read it together. But for now, I will just close by saying that we wrestlers, those of us wrestling with the God within and the God around us and in our community, we have the neural pathways and spiritual pathways to peace within and to restore sacredness in our broken relationships. The words of Martin Buber may help us. He had written, "Speak to yourself. Everything depends on you. The conflicts between you and others are nothing but the conflicts in your own soul. Overcome this conflict so that you may go out to him and her and enter into new transformed relationships. Seek peace in your own heart. You cannot find peace anywhere except in your own place. When you have made peace within yourself, you will be able to make peace in the whole world. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Gail. I'm very grateful for you coming here speaking with us. Personally, I couldn't have asked for better words just before you before. I'm very grateful. There's a blessing we say when we hear the word of the wise, and we say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shechalak michochmato לבני Adam. Blessed are you, sovereign of the world, the universe, who is giving divine wisdom to human beings. So thank you for being with us here today. And we have really little time for questions. Yeah, maybe tell you exactly how many minutes so that we come up with really just 5 minutes for questions. Because there's
So sorry.
that's okay. I think we all really needed to listen to you, and that's fine. And maybe just a few questions, and Gail isn't going anywhere. She's promised to be around for at least a few more years. Yeah. Anyone? I'm going to pass the mic. Or Shoshana, are you willing to do that holy work?
On ego, what do you say for practicing for letting go your ego, or what materials do you suggest on reading on how to let go of your ego, one's ego?
I think the practices that I personally often turn to are the Buddhist practices of letting go, of seeking quiet space, meditation, journaling, being in nature, attuning to the body is a big one also. Noticing where I'm holding tightness, bringing my attention there, and listening to my feelings. What is this? Why am I angry? What is happening here? What is this reminding me of? What are my core wounds that I haven't yet addressed? That is afflicting me and affecting the people around me. How can I let go, knowing that I'm tied to something more than how somebody looks at me, or just the practicing of letting go, going onto the balcony and looking at what I am doing, saying, or thinking, or feeling a little bit more objectively, witnessing from afar as well as from within. I hope that's helpful. I'd be happy to recommend books or send those to you later. Yeah. Mhm. I'm so grateful for the authors, the real wise people who have shared their learnings and experiencing through the ages. Anyone else?
Okay, basically, you're talking about us in our rational thinking, the rational people, we can react. Sometimes we lose this rationality and anger as something overcomes. How we can control it or be in charge.
So I'm hearing the question as, when we're rational, we have the means to kind of reconnect to our higher selves, but sometimes we're affected by irrationality. Is that the question? Yeah, and sometimes there are things that are completely beyond our control. And there's a part of us that has to sometimes let go of that. You know, every service we're asking for the wisdom, what is within our control, what is not, and how can we ascertain the difference? What we can do is, even in the chaos of irrationality, we can bring our highest selves to that. Sometimes it is finding something that we can do, even if it's just how we bring ourselves into that environment. I don't know if that's does that help at all? Like, what more, maybe someone else can add to that in a more enlightening way. Liz? Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about what you were saying, and you're right, you mentioned that it takes 90 seconds for the chemicals. That may be true, but it takes a lot more than 90 seconds, at least for me, to come down to a place where I can act compassionately. So for myself, after having had more than one really unfortunate experience with emails, I decided to set a rule that if I feel even a little tiny bit angry, tiny bit angry, I don't hit send for 90 minutes, no matter how sure I am that I'm right this time. So by putting sort of a barrier in place, and sometimes I sit there and go, I know I'm right this time. I don't care, that's the rule. I very rarely send that email, very rarely. So sometimes it's a matter of just kind of setting a fence for ourselves until we have the time to come down.
Absolutely, boundaries, knowing our boundaries and creating some that help us to move more peaceably in the world. Shelley.
Bob, Shelley, Bob, and then we're gonna have to conclude.
No, I've come to a long way in this, I feel. I'm trying to ask myself if I'm angry or having a problem and need to respond to someone. I'm trying to tell myself, is it necessary to respond? Is it true? And is it kind? So that I will make peace, not war inside myself and the other person. So does that make sense?
Absolutely, is it helpful or hurtful? Yeah, a wonderful guide. Yeah, thank you for that.
First of all, Gail, you put a book into one short period of time, and it's a marvelous book. But I think in answer to the last question, my reaction to it is something that Rabbi Zohar has been saying over and over again in this sermon: we are human. And never forget that means we are not perfect. And sometimes we just will not do as well as at other times, and the need to forgive ourselves for being human.
Well, one more.
Amen.
Oh, no. Oh. We thought that you. Okay, so in that case, leave them, okay. Yeah, so you want, so.
There's
You
a
wanna say
person-
one, you want?
That's a question.
Oh, who on the screen has a question? Let's take one from the screen. Ralph? Did you want to say something, Ralph? No. So we experience, the groups need to ask more questions by assuming that other people have a question. They don't necessarily, so that's interesting to notice. So we're left with, it's true that we're left with this taste for more. Yeah, so thank you so much once again. I think, I speak on behalf of myself, but I think for the group, we all gained a lot from your lecture. I agree that it's almost feels like a book. Maybe we should start a Temple Sinai publication company. You know? And kind of like hard for me to switch into announcements mode, but I have to. Say a couple of things. One is I feel that the whole of the bagel that rolls and rolls could use the energy of some volunteers. So I spoken with Bob Israel, the head of the adult ed committee yesterday, and we're gonna talk about it more after I know this, but if you're called to be a person who is in touch with our distinguished guests who are coming, calling them the day before, asking them if there's anything they need, meeting them at the door early, helping them, showing them around. If you're technically inclined and you can help with making sure that the camera is operating, that the mics are functioning, they usually are, but things like that, just to help operate this thing. I think they're also looking, the bagels appear here miraculously, but it's all volunteers. So if you understand the preciousness of this weekly thing that we're doing here, and you're agreeing to kind of like become an adult ed volunteer, contact Bob Israel and tell him I'm one of those people, and that'll be helpful. The other announcement is that, as you know, we're trying to extend our adult ed adventures beyond 11 a.m., which means on Sundays, which means that between 11 and noon, usually there's some time slot that we each week it's something else. So last week it was Ask the Board members, and this week is a rare opportunity. It's not that rare, really. I hear all the time, but it's called Ask the Rabbi. No, I have exactly. So I'm listening to Gail's lectures, and I'm like, it's rare only because it doesn't happen every month. It's happened like 3 times a year. My sincere hope, my secret was that no one will come and I can just go home early, but that's how rare it is, right? But then also it's like I had all sorts of fantasy in my head that people are going to ask questions in advance and blah blah blah, but it's going to end up being a little more spontaneous than that. So if you just want to chat with me between 11 and 12, you're welcome to stay. Then the last notice, of course, is that 3 exciting opportunities for learning adult ed program additionally are going to open after the high holidays around the end of October. One of them will be learning the Song of Song, which is the Bible's scroll of love, with Feliza, who's sitting here. And there's a really nice group that's already registered, but you can join that. That's going to happen Wednesdays at 7 for 5 sessions, for a duration of 5 sessions. If you already know a little bit of Hebrew and would like to join intermediate Hebrew, that's going to happen at 6 p.m. So theoretically, you could come here for 2 hours of Hebrew and then that every Wednesday. People have asked me, what is intermediate Hebrew? I said, well, that's what we call it, intermediate. We're going to see who comes, and the teacher, who's Pauline Rosenberg, will probably adjust the group to whoever comes. So you don't have to feel that you're advanced, and if you're in Hebrew for beginners, you're probably already in Hebrew for beginners, so you're not going to go to the intermediate this year. And then the last opportunity is actually more, is going to be Thursday morning track, which consists of 3 parts. One is going to be mind-body experience, actually bi-weekly, with Gail and our Feldenkrais teacher, Mara, I forget her last name, Mara. So you can come from 9:30 to 10:30 to experience amazing, important mind-body. Spoke about the importance of coming to the body. We're trying to promote that in Temple Sinai. Then from 10:30 to noon, I'll be teaching 6 weeks series called Tales of the Talmud. There's amazing fairy tales in the Talmud. They're very rich, they're very spiritual, they're very wise. And by learning them, we can, I don't know how much Talmud you've had a chance to learn, but come join us. And then it'll be followed by noon by something called Bring Your Own Lunch, which is going to give you an opportunity to schmooze and have fun and eat and nourish ourselves and be friendly. So don't forget to enroll to one of those amazing learning opportunities of adult ed. All right. So thank you one more time, Gail. Next week, we're going to have the Mormon expert, Church of Latter-day Saints. And between this and that, we have Yom Kippur. So don't forget to show up as well for Yom Kippur. Okay? It's going to be at the JCC. See you there. All right. Thank you. And at 11, if you want to chat with me, I'll be here this week.
You nailed it. Yes. I wanna hear that story. All right. And it goes there. The fires. All right. Hard to touch the fire. Yeah. Come around there, right? And person may not, but. Hard. Yeah. And some of them. So it was recorded, is that correct? Why not? Any. Do you have any winter trying to make it up? Right. So Seems like I. But it is any other window, it's like Tuesday, you have anything else? Wednesday. Take care of Right, to think Alice was the only one that could. But even it's ready to. My God. The great one thing. That's why. Let me check myself. I like it. All right. I have to go to Jehovah's Witnesses and I so right now. It's like. Yeah, Saturday. Then actually, I told you I was going to JCC, for this little play that they have. Yeah, yeah. Okay, and are you going today? Oh, I'm sorry. But you have to relax 2 days ago. Oh, what's that? I gotta know that my computer. Oh, I thought I could just look to the PPO because I wasn't go to person. And I you look them that to me. Oh, I thought it was just. And then I said, let me just go to healthy. So I think we're gonna have to go to like. I think I had the leaflet in front of me so that I could see them. For some. Oh, yeah, that's what I need, so this is the one would be, yeah, I could probably. That's it. That's great. I'll send it to you, but I am sorry. Yeah, but if I had that in front of me, I think I could even talk to the person on the phone. But but you know, send me. This person. Right here, express and. Oh, yeah, I'll make that point. The only thing I want to say is not just well, I don't think I'd ever saw the traditional. Yeah, and I have like. Because we have until, we have December to make. Yeah. Me too, it's on my desk.
I'm glad I didn't know that plan was not to. All right, I'm gonna go, because I've gotta get up to the, piece for Kingdom. I just do it because I love it. All right, we're gonna find tonight. It was hard, and now, you know, it's really good.